Peter, what is it that is unique about Wish? What is it that makes it different as a startup?
Sure. So you can think of it as an e-commerce platform or a marketplace. But unlike most marketplaces, the way that we actually think of Wish is just like a shopping mall, right? So the consumer has a very similar experience as going to the shopping mall and deriving entertainment value from that experience, and doing that on mobile. So 80% of our traffic is on smartphones, 12% is on tablets. And just as people got really used to deriving entertainment value from playing games or doing something really quickly with their smartphone, we are providing the same type of entertainment value by showing you products that you might be interested in. So without the hassle of actually driving to the mall, finding parking, going through the crowds and everything else, you can just pull out your phone, look at products that are relevant to you, maybe buy something, maybe not, and put the phone back in your pocket. So now we're at just over 23 million users.
Well, it's a lot.
Yeah.
And in what period of time?
So the mobile products have been out for about 18 months.
Mm-hmm.
So that's iPhone, iOS, iPad, and Android tablets. So when you sort of think about the experience of going to a shopping mall, doing window shopping, and deriving some kind of entertainment value from that, the other part that we focus on that's fairly different is actually the relevance component. So I spent 6 years at Google working on various matching problems. So for example, I started off working on Google AdWords, which generates about $40 billion worth of revenue for Google. Mm-hmm. And it's essentially matching different search queries to various different advertisements from the Google Ad Network. And that's a big matching problem, right? You have millions of different unique search queries, and you have hundreds of thousands or probably millions of different ads running at any given time, and you have to decide who to show to which user and what query. Then I ended up working on Google Search, which is probably the most important matching problem at Google. Again, you have millions or tens of millions of unique queries with any meaningful volume, and you're trying to match that to the top 10 search results for any particular query. And we think of what we're doing at Wish as a sort of similar matching problem, right? So we have now millions of different products, and we have these 23 million users, and we have to decide which products to show to which user, right? So think of it as, think of sort of old school eBay or like Craigslist listings, right? How do you make a listing of 15 million products look fun, look interesting, look compelling, especially on a tiny little mobile screen, right? So you make it a highly visual experience, but you make sure that you're showing the right things to the right people, so that when they're walking through this mall on their phone just by browsing through, they're actually seeing stuff that they like. And now we have about 600,000 users coming to our app every single day and spending an average of 28 minutes a day using that app. So there is a lot of stickiness there. We have about 22% DAU over MAU ratio.
What does that mean?
So that's how many users use your app every day over how many users use it every month. So a very sticky app like Facebook, over 50% of Facebook users actually use it every day, right? WhatsApp, which is sort of the big acquisition at the moment. This is February 27th, 2014, just acquired by Facebook for $19 billion. They actually had a stickiness of 74%. That means 74% of the users, of the monthly active users that use it every month, actually end up using the app every day. So messaging apps, social networks tend to have a really, really high ratio. E-commerce apps traditionally have a fairly low ratio. It's usually between 5 and 10%. We're actually at about 22% because we see ourselves as much more than just an e-commerce shopping app, right? You don't shop every day, right? You don't go to Amazon every day. It's not fun. It's almost like a chore. But if you make the experience fun, like going to a shopping mall, doing some window shopping, getting excited about it, you can actually get users to use it a lot more. And that's where our 22% DAU over MAU ratio comes into place. And we've been increasing that significantly over time.
I see. Can users share their shopping experience on the mobile device as well?
That's a great question. So now we're getting about 80,000 downloads per day this moment, and most of that is actually coming from users sharing actual products and shopping experiences with people that are not yet on the platform. So we have about 300,000 recommendations per day, and what that means is a user that sees maybe a red coat or some cool shoes or an interesting watch and says, well, maybe I might not like it, but I know Rebecca will love it.
Right.
And we make it really easy to actually share with Rebecca, and then Rebecca might not be a Wish user yet, But if she gets, one or two or three of these recommendations, hopefully she'll end up joining the platform and deriving the same kind of addictive entertainment value as the user that recommended these products to her.
So where are the users? Are they mostly in the US or?
It's a great question. 50% US and Canada, then about 40% in Western Europe. So that's mostly Italy, France, Spain, the UK. And then the remaining 10% kind of spread out all over the world. Australia is fairly big. And some Latin American countries like Brazil are growing pretty quickly. So that's where the users are. Now the interesting thing is the suppliers are actually almost all Taobao or Alibaba suppliers in China.
Right, yeah, I knew there was a China connection here.
That's right.
So how does that work then?
Yeah, so we opened up the commerce platform in March of 2013. And we were really we built it similarly to AdWords. So our team is mainly former Google, Yahoo, Facebook guys. We try to make it as self-serve as possible. So any merchant can come on board, and any merchant can, basically put any kind of items up there, decide the prices, etc. And then it's, whatever the users choose to buy or browse, whatever becomes trending is really up to the consumers. And very quickly we realized that it's actually the Chinese merchants that are currently, on Taobao or Tmall that provided the greatest amount of value to the consumers that we have in the United States or North America and Europe. And we decided to sort of continue to double down on those merchants. The reason why they're so interesting is if you're familiar with Alibaba, so Taobao and Tmall did about $157 billion in sales last year. That's more than eBay and Amazon.com combined, and that's all domestically in China. So they claim to have millions of SMBs or these merchants that are certainly providing a lot of value to consumers in China, but they have no outlet. They have no outlet to reach international consumers, and Wish is quickly becoming that outlet. So part of our challenge is taking those merchants, and typically they have higher quality products now than they did 5 years ago. They're fairly sophisticated since they've grown with the Taobao and other Alibaba platforms, and educating them on how to sell to Western consumers. And we've been pretty successful at that. On the consumer side, we are targeting much more of the mainstream consumers. So what we've seen is a lot of the apps in our space tend to go after the top 5%. They tend to want to create the Nordstrom of mobile shopping, right? And we don't think of it that way, right? So we think that mainstream consumers that go to Walmart or just shop at their local shopping malls, tend to be much more loyal, and there's obviously a lot more of them, right? So if you compare, the sales from Nordstrom with the sales of Walmart, Walmart does $500 billion a year in sales, or their market cap, right? Walmart is a $200 billion company, Nordstrom is a $7-8 billion company. There's a huge contrast there, and we definitely want to build the latter. So we want to build this very addictive, entertaining, and relevant, and therefore effective shopping experience for hundreds of millions or potentially billions of consumers worldwide.
So then the merchants actually list their products on the site, and I imagine they pay for a listing.
Yeah, it's a good question, right? So the way that we do it is, it's a little bit different than an actual shopping mall. So one thing we decided early on, because we're a brand new platform, is we're not going to charge for listings.
Okay.
So we're just going to charge commission, and that way there's really no hesitance for any merchant to join our platform, because there's really no spending, or there's no cost to them unless they actually are generating sales.
Okay.
So very quickly we found that that's a much easier way to convince any merchant to join.
I think that's the way Taobao took off as well.
That's right, yeah. Taobao took off that way, and now Taobao charges merchants for a lot of different things, and it's extremely competitive because it is very effective in getting these merchant sales, and that makes actually our pitch much easier. Because our pitch is, well, yeah, you can compete on Taobao, and you can pay for placements, or you can pay for all these different fees, and then you're still competing with 2 million businesses or merchants that are similar to you, or you can use Wish and just reach 500 million consumers potentially over time in Europe and North America where you have no competition.
Okay.
And that's very compelling to them.
Okay. So it sounds like you're generating revenues already then.
Sure. Yeah, we're generating meaningful revenues and growing quite quickly.
So what can you say about the revenue growth and where you are right now?
So we don't disclose revenues. Our run rate's in the hundreds of millions per year already, and it's growing relatively quickly. So during the holiday season, I think we doubled October to November and then November to December.
Okay.
Again.
Okay. Now you've raised finance from Jerry Yang and also from Hans Tung of GGV Capital. How did you select these investors, or did they select you? How did the process happen?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So Jerry Yang actually got involved in the Series A. So we raised our Series A from Formation 8. So Joe Lonsdale was the main partner, who I knew for a while already. So that was Jerry Yang and Formation 8, which is a brand new venture fund as well. We knew Formation 8 for a while, or I knew Joe Lonsdale for a while. So they invested actually, almost pre-product market fit. That was in early 2012. So I'd say that was April 2012, even before we actually launched the mobile products. With Hans and GGV, it was very different. We weren't actually raising money. But my partner actually met Hans through another connection back in Beijing when Hans was still in China, and he was interested in what we were doing. So when Hans made the move to Silicon Valley, he reached out to us. We kept on talking. He really liked what he heard. I think what he told me was, I asked you 5 key questions and your answers were perfect on all 5, so I want to invest right now. And the conversation went, we're not really raising money right now, but we saw the value add there, and we saw how he could help us scale our efforts on the supply side with the merchants in China. And that was, something that we didn't want to pass on. And we partnered up in November of 2013 and kept growing since then.
How much have you raised in total?
So again, something we don't disclose, but I can say I think now it's a little over $30 million.
All right. Have you used any of the money yet?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it, the kind of business that we're in and the kind of returns that venture capital requires, you tend to spend a lot of the money quickly in order to scale really, really quickly. We have a lot of money left, but in order to grow to this kind of business that is interesting and compelling, and what we're here to build, which is 10 billion plus GMV per year, gross merchandise volume per year, you will want to spend a lot of the money to get to that scale quickly.
Right. Now, what are your long-term objectives? What's going to happen to this company? Is it going to be another WhatsApp acquisition, or are you going to try to take it public, or what do you think? You're just going to continue to grow for a long time and then see what happens, or what's the long-term objective? What do you hope to get out of this?
Yeah, it's a good question. We're on the mission, right? So we don't really think of any acquisitions. I don't think that's an option that we really consider. I think definitely IPO, but I have to kind of stop myself and think about that. I think those are kind of milestones along the way.
Yeah.
It's definitely not going to be something like What's Up. Building a sort of a marketplace solution requires more than 50 employees, and there are a lot more moving pieces. Not that they've done a great job getting 500 million monthly active users, etc. So for us, our objective is to by 2017 do $10 billion in GMV per year, and that's really what we care about, right? So we care about certain key metrics, but they're all centered around how many consumers are actually coming to Wish, every day, every week, every month, what they're doing on Wish, and what they're actually buying, right? Mm-hmm. And making that experience better and better and better. Mm-hmm. So we know that this is actually working for 23 million consumers right now. Can we scale that to 230 million consumers? Can we scale it to 1 billion consumers? Mm-hmm. And that's really our key focus, right? And since we are a marketplace, we have to focus on the supply side, which is the merchant relationships, as well as the consumer relationships. Other than that, we don't really think about potential exits, other than to just become successful and meet our long-term goals.
All right. So how did Jerry Yang get involved again?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I knew a bunch of Jerry's colleagues. Uh-huh. So I think one of our seed investors, Hank Vigil, who was the VP of Partnerships and Strategy at Microsoft, mm-hmm. knew Jerry because of the partnerships that they've struck with Yahoo. Mm-hmm. Then Joe Lonsdale, who also from Formation 8 knew Jerry. Mike Marquez, who's at Code Advisors. We've been working with him for a while, also was very, very close to Jerry. So there were a bunch of sort of people we knew that were connected to him, and he basically came, and the reason why we really like Jerry, and we really didn't know much about why he's interested in e-commerce or marketplaces or anything like that. But number one, he had the foresight to invest in Alibaba. So that's clearly a huge success. He's on the board of companies like Rakuten, which is the biggest
Right.
e-commerce company in Japan,
Yeah.
and he's been extremely helpful. So once we met him, he decided to invest really quickly, and then he also participated in the Series B with Hans.
Oh, that's great. Is this your first startup?
This is my first startup. I joined Google pre-IPO. That was a startup, but I was an engineer back then. It was a lot of fun. It's been, a phenomenal experience, and seeing Google grow beyond it to what it is now is also inspiring. But this is the first startup where I'm actually a founder, yes.
Okay. Any lessons?
So a lot. Don't underestimate execution, right? So I think execution is a big part of what you do, and I'd say trust your instinct.